Okay, so now we're going to kind of skim through the history of adapted sport. And again, this is one of those sections that's outlined pretty well in your book. So if you read through that, you felt like you understand it, you could probably skip this part of the video. Not really adding anything here, just kind of highlighting some of it. So when did adapted sports begin? The first program was actually in 1838. So that's getting close to 2 centuries ago. So the adapted physical activity program was started at a school for visual impairment in Boston. The instructor was also visually impaired, which is fairly common actually. There's actually a school near, I think it's Glenwood, that's for students with visual impairments, and I got to watch their wrestling team at a competition at Arkadelphia last year, and most of their students have albinism, which leads to visual impairment, and the coaches also had albinism. So the program, they were really good too, by the way. The program initially was mostly just recreational, go outside, play, kick a ball, that kind of a thing, and then it became a little bit structured later on. What's interesting is that at 1838, the public schools didn't have physical education. So not only was that first program innovative for adaptive sports, it was innovative just in general. Nobody was doing physical education. So it was really the first of its kind, first of a whole genre. So it wasn't until 1884 that they brought over like a gymnastics program from Sweden, I believe, to implement in the public school districts. And even that, it took a long time to phase into all the states. So it started kind of slow and integrated widely. And generally, you had a general physical education class for people without any disability who could behave and perform normally. And then you had corrective classes for people that had difficulty. And so each student was diagnosed by a physician and was referred to one class or the other. But a lot of students that had disabilities were simply just excused and were told, you don't have to worry about that, which was really a disadvantage for those students. So then in 1952, 60 or so odd years later, we finally defined what adaptive physical education should be. It shouldn't just be, let's do some flexibility exercises and see if we can help you. It shouldn't be necessarily medically focused. We want to meet essentially the same standards as the general physical education classroom. We just understand that that's going to require some modifications, maybe some extra services, extra personnel to be able to reach those goals. And so because they defined it, now we had a set of standards by which from that point forward, physical education had to abide by, and made it more possible for students to be included in the general physical education classroom. Nobody was getting excuses anymore. So that was a really positive change. 2 other special events that occurred. The Project on Recreation and Fitness for the Mentally Retarded, which later changed their name to be a little bit less offensive. We'll talk about why the R word is offensive in a little bit. But that program got funded in 1965. And then in 1968, the Special Olympics was founded by Eunice Kennedy Shriver. And since then, it's just grown and kind of blown up to where it's a national program. It's in almost every school district is participating. As even if they're not in the school district, there may be community programs and community teams that are participating. It is really gotten to be very elite in the way they operate. That's a really great organization.